They're just, eyes are wide open and they're amazed with just how this place is run, and it's exciting. It's exciting.
You know what time it is? It's time to get in the game with your host, Cynthia J.
It was great. You're right in the sun. The weather is perfect.
Me, and she'll be standing next to me and they'll be like, hey, you gotta have a boy. You and V gotta have a boy, man. You have somebody carry on the tradition, the legacy. She's like, oh, I got this. You know, boy, for that, I got you. Like, that's right. Yes, you do. You got this.
And that's how we choose to remember Kobe Bryant this evening.
Do you think your daughter might want to play in the WNBA?
And the legacy of the Black Mama. Good evening, everyone. I am your host, Satara J, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Getting in the Game. Yes, our hearts are heavy as we remember Kobe Bryant and we dedicate this show to him, but business continues on as usual. And this evening, I am pleased to have with me here on set to discuss a very important topic that athletes face day in and day out: mental health. And so this evening we will be discussing minding the game, and I have with me some very special guests that are qualified to discuss this topic. To my left is Jacksonville Sharks cornerback Tony Goodman. To my immediate right is mental health counselor Patricia Hunter, and to my far right is Devin Wilson, a wide receiver for the Jacksonville Sharks. And good evening to you all. Thank you for joining us here on Get in the Game. We are so happy to have you here. And unfortunately, we do have to start acknowledging that we lost a great legend, and not just a legend, but a husband first, a father, a friend, a mentor, and of course, the man who is known for starting the Mamba way. And so I'll start with you, Devin, to my right. As a wide receiver, and even though, you may not have played the same sport as Kobe, what will you remember about him and why?
His mentality, like you said, the Mamba way, just the attack every day. You see all these things on TV right now about him, and I saw one of his interviews that, one of the ways he wants to be remembered is the way he attacked everything, from basketball to everyday life. And I think if you take that from him and stuff, you'll be successful just like he was.
And Tony, obviously, as an athlete, you don't have to necessarily interact with somebody like Kobe Bryant. Even if you've never met him before, I'm sure he's impacted you in some way. And so how will you remember him?
Well, for me, it just made the day that I found out it happened, like that night, my training was different. My out there on the field. I just know that that's something that he did. Like, it was told that certain games, I think it was the All-Star game or something, like he missed a 3-point shot from a particular spot, and everybody left, and the coach said that Kobe stayed there. He kept shooting that same shot until he perfected it, because that's the type of person he was. And so, I find myself now, it's like I've taken my practice to another level, because I don't want to just do it, but I want to be remembered.
Awesome. And Miss Patricia, how will you remember the life and legacy of Kobe Bryant?
Well, I think that I will remember him as a legacy, as his spirituality, his positivity, and mainly how he affected young people. Mm-hmm. As I talked to a few young people on yesterday, during my job, the way that he affected them with the positivity and the spirituality. And even my own son called me that night and was sharing with me, you know, information that I didn't even know that he had received from Kobe. So that's what I remember the most, that spirituality and that positivity. That's a legacy that will always remain.
I think one thing that I'll remember, and you guys here on the set who may be parents, what I appreciate hearing about Kobe the most is he was truly a girl dad, you know. As a man, I think that you want a boy to pass on your name, your lineage, your legacy, your generations. But for Kobe, he saw that being manifested. Even, you know, the reason for the accident, headed to a tournament
Mama
for
said.
his 13-year-old daughter, Gigi. He saw the legacy living on through her. And so I just, as a daddy's girl, it really just kind of saddened me that, you know, these other 3 young ladies are going to be without their father. But he left here doing what he loved most, and that was being a dad. And so we just ask you here on the Get in the Game show to remember them in your prayers. No speculation is necessary. We know that God does all things well. And so what we need to do now is just pray for the family. And so I think, you know, in light of what's gone on, and everything else that has been going on in the world of sports, this year has just kind of started with a bang. And so I think it's the perfect timing to talk about the mental health of an athlete and how things affect you guys, and how you, Miss Patricia, as a mental health counselor, see different cases on a day-to-day basis. First, let's start with the guys and kind of talk about how you started in your career, and if there are things that you have faced during your career. Devin, I'll start with you, because we were talking offline before the show started, and one thing that I saw about your story that was mind-blowing, and I want you to explain what happened to you back in 2016. Was it 2016?
2010.
2010. Okay, so a little bit further back. Something happened to you in 2010. Can you share that with our viewing audience?
Yeah, so I went to Tennessee State University, which is in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm from, born and raised. And September 28th, 2010, I took a hit in practice that I landed funny on my neck, I guess so, and I was paralyzed for 6 hours. The doctors classified it as spinal shock. They really couldn't give me a reason. They couldn't give my mother a reason. They couldn't give anybody a reason. Really, they just said, you know, it's a miracle that you're walking. This is the medical term. We have to basically, you know, deem it. So, you know, me, I didn't really understand it at the time. Like, why me? Why is this happening? But that kind of, you know, turned me to, you know, my spirituality. And that really is kind of what got me through it and everything. It was hard. I basically missed the entire season, the rest of the season. We were 4 games in, and it was tough, you know. I mean, being an athlete, you know, as an athlete, sometimes you feel invincible. You know, you feel like nothing can stop me. You know, I'm unbreakable. But when that happens, it's humbling. You know, and it took time. It gave me time to reflect, to learn myself as a man, especially on you know, in college. I finally got to be kind of a student, not an athlete for once. But it really helped me, honestly, because the next season, I came back bigger, stronger, faster than ever, and I didn't even lift a weight throughout that entire time. And yeah, I mean, I just, you know, people ask me all the time, how'd you get through it? And, you know, God, honestly, I mean, that's the only way.
Yeah. And Tony, you've been playing football for a very long time, and so I'm sure you've seen a lot. And just talk about kind of the mental health battles you've faced over the years, and particularly one that you remember and recall now that stands out to you the most when you see some of these players like the Antonio Browns, the Donovan Dariuses, who we'll talk about later, kind of going through what they're going through now.
For me, I don't think it was more so like injury, like the head shot or whatever. Of course, I had a lot of those, but they nicknamed me Tank for a reason, you know. So, but it was more so the mental aspect as far as being away from the game, like not having the game, you know, at a time where you felt like you were at your best and you felt like you should be playing, and it's like it was just kind of taken away from you. And it's in that moment, in a sense, like where you're a player, but you're not, you know, as far as like mature to where you separate football and really understand that football is just football, but I'm somebody bigger than that outside of that. But when football is like your world, like it's your number one, like, and when it's gone, like I remember 14, I went for 13. It started in 12. Like I've been on this journey for a long time, and my first year for the Sharks last year, like that was my first year playing like pro, you know, well besides the AAF. But I came from the AAF and came here, but in 12, you know, I didn't have a pro day, you know, and I would believe in God. Like I was at my best. I had a good season. So I'm expecting to go, you know, having a pro day. Oh man, like then, you know, I had to go through that for 2 years. Then the super regional, I heard about that. I'm like, man, I'm finna go to the regional combine. So I went, applied, went to the regional combine in Baltimore. I received a call April 1st. I thought somebody was playing April Fools on me. You know, I'm like, man, quit playing. It was like, hey, congratulations. You know, you've been invited to the super regional. And we know super regional, that's like second to Indy. You know, all 32 scouts, like it was where every player wanted to be, you know. So I remember walking in there in front of all 32 scouts, you know, meeting them, getting on that stage, weighing in and taking my measurements. I remember getting all the apparel and everything and taking the one-lit test and getting out on the field, running a 4.4. I was probably like 200 pounds then, like 205, so I was moving. And like halfway through position drills, my whole body just like shut down. Like I couldn't explain it. Like it just shut down. I was at my best. And after that, you know, I just looked out like, God, this can't be happening, you know. And me just being who I am, and you know, I'm coming from nothing. I'm trying to prove myself, you know. So I tried to keep going, and it didn't work. You know, my body was just shot, and so my numbers and everything was off. So after that, man, mentally, like, I was, like, done, you know, because I'm like, man, this was my chance. Like, man, I'm supposed to be there. Like, I'm supposed to be signing with somebody. Like, why this had to happen to me? And so from there, I was just like, man, bump everything. Like, man, people man, I don't want to hear about God. Like, I don't want to, man, don't talk to me about nothing. Go to church. I ain't going to church. Like, I ain't picking up no weight. Like, leave me alone. Don't call me about football or nothing. Like, I just got in a black hole, you know. And but it took a moment. I did finally crack, and I was invited to go to church, and you know, there was a prophet there, and he spoke to me, and he said everything I was feeling like. You know, he was like, hey, you felt like you was on your way here, and this, like you was sideswiped, and this, like you mad, angry, frustrated, all that. I was just like, all right, God, you know. And I think for me, like I said, that's the mental portion. I know you're gonna get into that later, but that was the thing for me. Like, how could I live without football? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, as a mental health counselor, when you hear him say things like black hole and just wanting to quit and give up on everything, I mean, you've been in this industry for over
8 years.
8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you've seen a lot, you hear a lot, you've talked to a lot of people. When you hear, are those trigger points, you think, mm-hmm. what both of these professional athletes have described and explained? What goes through your mind hearing that?
Okay, so what I notice, and as a mental health counselor, what I do is I assist people with being able to stay healthy as far as their mental well-being. You know, when people talk about mental health and mental illnesses, they kind of put it together.
And they're different.
They are.
Okay, can you explain that for us?
Mental health is, it's health. It's everybody has health, and everyone has mental health. And it's just like physical health. So with mental health, it's making sure that you are taking care of yourself, making sure your mental well-being is taken care of. That's your emotions, your thoughts, your behaviors. how do you deal with problems? How do you connect socially with people? How do you view yourself, and how do you deal with and cope in the world around us? That's your mental well-being. Mental illness is most people will go through life and not have a mental illness. Okay, mental illness works like this. The mental illness is how you behave, how you act, how you think about living in the world or living and coping in this world. So I always use the example of, we always make sure, and it's so easy to make sure that our physical health is well. It's like you talked about. And it's like you hear people talking about it all the time. That is a big thing. Just like you all have physical therapists as football players and doctors and everything with you as you go from place to place. Right. Why not a mental health therapist?
Wow.
Why don't we treat it the same way? Just like if you were to start getting a cold now, like you said, you got sick, whatever. Even if you could care less about going to a doctor, you're not going to resist going to a doctor because you want to get well physically. Right. Okay? So, but when you start having mental concerns, your well-being, mental well-being is off, your mental health is off, why is it that we hesitate on going to the mental health therapist, a counselor, the person who is going to help us get well mentally?
And that you add, I know you have a lot more to say, and we'll come back to you, but I wanted to pose to these guys that question because I think one thing that I would love for you guys to explain that most people do not understand is what you go through mentally and why you would choose not to get help mentally.
But ready for the physical.
Ready for the physical. Not ready to deal with the emotional or mental. And I'm sure you've both been there. So can you just quickly explain what goes through your mind when you may feel yourself? And I know, Tony, we talked about this on the radio show at one point. When you begin to feel yourself going down that black hole or that dark hallway.
You're coping.
Devin, I'm sure you felt that when you had, your experience with being paralyzed.
Yeah.
Why not go get help? What goes through an athlete's mind to say, I don't need help?
Yes.
I think it's more like the ego thing, the ego part of, I mean, it's kind of taught to you as a young player. I started playing football when I was 5 years old. You're taught to not feel pain. You're taught to keep going. You're taught to, and these things are instilled upon you to the point that it almost becomes second nature. And you carry this with you sometimes throughout life. And kind of like what Tony said, certain people don't know how to separate those, from football and real life. So I think, a lot of times with me, it took a minute to really understand that when I was in Saskatchewan, when I played with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, that was the first time I saw a coach invest the time into a mental coach. We sat down and he came in and did workshops with us, about like, things to when you doubt yourself, how to, how to, continue that and not how to doubt yourself in certain situations and to help. And, ultimately, you hear people all the time go to counseling and stuff, and some people might look down upon it, but you hear all these NBA players now, like Kevin Love, keep speaking out about it. And I think it takes people like that to, enlighten, one of the younger generation, to let them know that it's okay that, that we all have like messed up things here and there.
We all have those thoughts.
Yeah.
So what happens when a player snaps, Tony?
What you mean as far as?
When
May I answer?
Yes.
What I notice is what happens is when they snap, meaning dark hole, can't put my way out.
Oh yeah.
Can't put my way out. Oh my goodness.
They're already there.
Then somebody says, "Oh, we need to get him examined. We need to get him to a mental health professional." When we go to our physical health to a doctor, don't we go for annuals every year? Don't we go for physicals? Make sure we're okay.
Right.
But we wait until something is going wrong before we say, "Ooh."
I think that's why so many players, especially like retired players, I know that's Joe Namath, like he big on that now.
Yes.
And doing the hyperbaric chamber,
yes,
treatment or whatnot, trying to restore his brain and heal his brain.
Yeah, and something you mentioned, and we're going to get ready to pull up this clip. is we wait until things begin to start happening. So the first person I think about, and we were all ready to begin to discuss, is Antonio Brown. So it hasn't been until recent, and to be honest, it really didn't. I don't think anyone really started questioning anything until he began to call out Ben Roethlisberger. Then he started taking cheap shots at Juju Smith-Schuster. And then he has, this big departure after standing on the sideline in a game in a huge fur coat. We forget that, right? Those were signs, do you think, Ms. Patricia, were those signs?
Psychologically, those could have been signs. So when you notice those things immediately, because for one, we don't know how long. See, I would have to, of course, sit down with that person one-on-one and get a history. But, to see what type of coping and how was he able to function when he was younger, when he was in college, whatever. But as we see these type of things, we know that's not normal.
Right.
So why do we wait till it gets way out of hand and then we're like, oh, I think we need to do something to help him.
Right. So
that's not right.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem.
Yeah. And so we're getting ready to play this clip. And this clip that I'm showing, and of course, when we come back from the clip, Tony, Devin, being football players, because we don't know how that feels. We don't. And I don't want to know how it feels, but you've delivered those hits probably, and you've received those hits probably. So after we play this clip, now the clip you're getting ready to see is 2016, the Steelers against the Cincinnati Bengals. They were in a wild card game. Antonio Brown catches I don't even know if he caught the ball. We'll find out in the clip, but he gets hit by Vontaze Burfict. And I want to say this. So we remember the hit on Antonio Brown, but nobody really began to question if there's any mental issues with Vontaze Burfict that would cause him to aim at the head of someone. And I'm getting flabbergasted because it goes both ways. And so we always think about the person that received the hit and could he be suffering mentally, but what about the people who deliver the hits? Right. So let's take a look at this clip, and when we come back, Tony, we'll start with you on what you hear, see, and what you think about this. Let's play it.
Roethlisberger from the pocket, middle of the field, incomplete. Personal foul. A flag does come in. Went to the head. Lewis Harris is going to be flagged for this on the hit on Antonio Brown, and it's going to put the Steelers in field goal range. Burfict was in there too.
Burfict is coming across the field. I saw it. I thought it was him.
Yeah, I know that they both were in on the coverages at 55 or 37.
Personal foul, defense number 55, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
Burfict in the end.
Definitely took the shot to the head. You could see it live. Marvin Lewis, before this drive started, was talking on the sideline. The whole time it seemed like to Vontaze Burfict, and yes.
Oh, my goodness. Brown is still down.
That's, of course, flagrant.
Out of control.
Out of control. It's going to be everything. That's going to be.
Brown was still down then, and in my opinion, he's still down now. Tony, you could have been the one delivering the hit, but just your thoughts on that being a football player.
I mean, for a defensive player, it's not your intentions, to give somebody a headshot. It's just kind of a reaction. Like, you react, and it happens so fast. That's why now they press so much as far as like keep your head up. Type of as far as like they really drill that in practices now or whatnot, so that it becomes second nature. Like when you're out there, because like I said, when you coming out your break, you see the player, you see the quarterback, he released the ball, you see the player. And when you breaking, it's hard to control yourself. you know, because you just reacted. You want to make a play, you know, and sometimes, especially if you, like, you know that the contact is going to be there, it's going to be hard. To be honest, like, sometimes you shut your eyes.
Oh, wow.
You don't know what you hitting.
Wow.
You know, I think that's when most guys, like, get injured and stuff, you know.
Wow. Well, and I'm glad you said that. Before we get to Devin real quick, even though we saw the physical turmoil that Antonio Brown went through, Vontez may have been hurt on that play as well, because it was a head-to-head contact.
Right.
So even though he may walk off and Antonio Brown is the one down, do you get up from those hits and you're like, where's my sideline? Where am I? What just happened?
Yeah, of course. That happened to me in high school, man. I remember I had a big hit. We were playing against Bowles, and I had a big hit. I'm talking about, you can hear it, like, and everybody like, ooh, but at the same time, like, I'm trying to make it to the sideline.
Wow. Devin, as a wide receiver, okay, your thoughts on that? Have you received a hit like that before and been in concussion protocol?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of part of the game. It's what you sign up for. You know what I'm saying? I guess, you know, majority of the people, you know, honestly, I guess haven't played football, they wouldn't even realize that, you know, on every football helmet out there, it tells you, you know, basically don't play the game of football. Like, it's a risk. Like, you risk your, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of, you understand what you're getting yourself into. And then, you know, these things happen to people like this, Antonio Brown, and, you know, you hear all these stories about, you know, he's doing this, he's doing that, but, you know, as a player, from a player standpoint, how would you feel if you gave an organization everything, and for how many years, you're leading the league in every statistic, you know, you're the top jersey sale every year, and then, you know, all of a sudden you get older, you get injury prone now, so they got to find a way to not pay you, find a way to push you out. So, you know, I mean, you hear what the media says, but you don't know what's going on behind closed doors in the organizations. And, you know, I've seen it firsthand. You know, I was on a team, I'm not going to say any names, but I was on a team that I had a concussion the year before. They ended my season. At the end of the season, I was in concussion protocol all off season.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yes, it's a very long time. So, specialists, everything. Went to the next season, camp, first team, all through camp. Last day of camp, they cut me because of your concussions.
Wow.
But how you cut me by my concussions, but you let me practice this entire camp.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to be careful on how you judge things, because you really don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
I'm glad you said that. And Miss Patricia, is what we're seeing in Antonio Brown, is that an emotional, an inability to control your emotions gone wrong? Or is it possible that we're seeing the early signs of CTE? So I'm going to go down this list. Memory loss, confusion, impaired judgment, impulse control problems, aggression, depression, and anxiety.
Okay, so all of those can go towards a personality disorder. Okay. And I can name a few that those symptoms would fit under, but that's where the mental health examination comes in. Have these players had one? Have you had a second opinion? You use that information along with the information that they know about CTE, put it together, and determine what is the problem. It could be both. It could be both. Like I said, sitting down with the individual one-on-one, getting history, childhood, things about childhood, things about the family, different other diseases or any other health issues that they may have. All that plays a role in determining what that is.
And I'm sure another thing that plays a role, you started playing football when?
About the same age, about 4 or 5.
4 or 5 years old. Okay.
Yes.
So you're playing football at 4 or 5. Are you not also playing other sports as well?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So when you talk about the trauma to physical body, and even though, and I think that's why, you know, some parents withhold their children from playing in Little League, because even though you might be 42 pounds, you know, at 5 years old or however, I don't know how much you weigh at that age, right? The hit is still the hit. It's still a 42. It's still 42 pounds hitting 42 pounds.
Now they got unlimited weight, so you may have 42 hitting 90 pounds now.
Right.
Okay, so now you bring up another point. If you've been hitting and exchanging hits since 5, let's be real, guys. When you get to your 20s and early 30s, do you think about, I've been doing this since 5. What's really going on up here? Do you have those thoughts? Do you have days where, you know, I've talked to some former players where they say they start, you know, their memory starts going, or they start realizing that I thought I did that, but I guess I didn't do that. Do you have those thoughts where you notice things about yourself and you're wondering what's going on up here?
I feel like that's like a double-edged sword. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like that, like, so honestly, no, I have never had any of those effects, like memory loss, anything like that, like anything. I mean, I've had documented 4 concussions, you know what I'm saying, just being honest with you, and probably have had a few more that haven't been documented, just to be honest with you as well. You know, I feel like a lot of these guys that you see about the CTE stuff are older players. You know, the junior say-outs, the very first guy from the Steelers and stuff like that. That if you go back and do a lot of the research about it, it's because these guys, they didn't go through the proper protocol before they returned to play. They were in the old times where they were just really taught to bang your head, bang your head, bang your head, and you go back out there and play. Well, now it's still, yes, it's a violent sport. It is a very violent sport. And, you know, should kids at a younger age, like 5, maybe not, shouldn't play it because your body's not fully developed. But there's protocol now to, you know, to hold yourself to get back fully well before you return to play. So, look, you could go down the street and get hit by a car and get a concussion. You know what I'm saying? But I love what I do, so it's not going to stop me from doing what I do. A truck driver probably loves driving trucks, but his back's probably messed up. He ain't going to stop driving trucks. So if you love to do something, honestly, you're going to go out there and do it regardless of whatever risk it is.
But are you thankful, though, that you have these things put in place? I'm sorry. That you have these things put in place for these different protocols for the CTE. Does that make you feel safer to play out there and not have to deal with the psychological, the physical that could come with it?
I mean, it does, but kind of like what Devin said, man, when you love to do it, I don't want to go through no protocol. Like, put me back on the field. Like you said, it's a risk, man. Hey, I love the game. Like, get me back out there. You know, if it's God, if the Lord go take me, if I'm going to lead that way, hey, man, hey. Family, everybody knows what sign up for, but I believe that angels all around me when I'm out there, so I don't worry about it.
So recently, we here in Jacksonville, and actually it was kind of eerie the way it happened. I got the alert on my phone Sunday night, so shortly after, we're all just realizing that Kobe's no longer with us. My phone beeps, and there's a story about Donovan Darius being arrested for a DUI. Now, digging a little further into this story, and again, Devin, I love your point because we don't know the back end of much stuff other than what the media puts out, and I can say that as being a part of the media. We only know what we're told, and sometimes the media, they do a bad job of speculating, but the report said that he was pulled over and they found bottles, empty bottles of pills. And he willingly told them that he had taken the pills and he had suicidal thoughts. Now, I don't know how that turns into a DUI. I guess you're driving under the influence of something, but it wasn't alcohol. And so we will say that. It was not alcohol, it was pills. When you see something like that, counselor, what is the first thing that goes through your mind. Now, here is a retired player. And so we're going to talk about, what happens to a player, like you said earlier, when everything you've known to be for the past 26 years is no longer there. And then we start seeing things like this happens. What kind of, I believe he was Baker acted. So what kind of protocol is he now facing?
Okay, so what Baker acted means is it's initiated by law enforcement, judges, mental health professional, and where it entails that the person has to go under an examination, okay? Through that examination, mental health examination, they're only required to do this if person, you think the person may have a mental illness, or that they are harm to themselves, someone else, or and so he shared with them himself that he was suicidal. So in myself, I want to think that that was him asking for help there. That's where I saw that. Okay, so I remember meeting Donovan a couple of times, and I just had the opportunity to hear him speak at a youth mentor awards back in May, I think it was. And the connection that we had, because he's a Christian, he's very positive, and the students connected with him well. So it makes me think, okay, one, when he told them, I've been suicidal, I took these pills, I feel like a part of me wants to say I'm asking for help. I'm screaming, help me. But then I wonder what could have been going on. Was it a financial thing? Was it, things that have been going on, mentally? Like you said, get in a dark place and feel like at the time there's no way out of this. But I still want somebody to help me. So with the Baker Act, that's what happens. That is what happens. So they can be retained for up to 72 hours. Up to 72 hours. And according to what that evaluation shows, it will determine if they are going to be released, out into the community with resources to help or whatever. So it's according to what those results will come from that examination. But I'm so glad that he is going to get one. He's gotten one or whatever. And they're doing whatever it needs to help him, because I feel like the young man was asking for help. I don't want to do this, but this is where I am.
Guys, let me ask you a question. As football players, Devin, you alluded to something earlier that you all at times seem to feel invincible. Do you think that it can be difficult to cry out for help when is there a feeling that we who watch you play this brutal sport,
that's it,
we feel like you're invincible too? So you should be fine. Because one thing she said here that I'm thinking about is he speaks at engagements all the time. He goes on about his everyday life. And all of a sudden, in a split second, it seems like, well, what happened to him? But is that life for you guys?
I mean, that's because he's a leader. I mean, you're a leader. Like, you always, it's a quote that, I often see. I think I saw it yesterday on Facebook, but it's like, check on your strong friends. Like, it be the ones who be the leaders and stuff, man, that they do all that encouraging and trying to motivate everybody else, but ain't nobody there to motivate them. Like, who there to motivate them? And they have to, they depend on God, but at the same time, like, we human. That's the spirit. Like, you still, you want that connection from a human being too, even though you really don't need it, but you do need it.
You feel like it's
and for him, I just know, I know some things that he's been through personally, I won't speak on. And I know that stuff there, along with the things that he may be dealing with now, like all that piled up on each other and trying to uphold this image, you want to uphold this image and feel like you got it all together. Like, I don't care. Like, you a believer? Yeah, believers, they struggle with that stuff too. Like, look at the prophet Elijah. He wanted to die.
Yeah.
He sat on the tree like, Lord, take me now. Yeah. Like, that because he was a leader. Like, it was a high calling on his life. And even for Donovan Darius, like, and what Devin said, like, you got this man, he gave all this time, 9 years to the Jags, like Pro Bowler, all this stuff, and all you get is a well done, pat on your back, like, and cut me a check, and your followers drop, like, people drop, all that stuff. Like, that stuff play on you. And like I said, this was it, just like Antonio Brown. I feel like the cries for help. Like, help me.
Yeah, and his cries are deep. Devin, the weight that you carry as an athlete, describe it.
It's heavy. Like, I mean, I don't even, like, sometimes it's real heavy. I mean, but it's what you sign up for. Like, you know what I'm saying? You accept it at the same time, but like, I'll be sitting here lying to you if I didn't tell you it's heavy. You know, I mean, you have kids and stuff looking up to you. You know, you can't do the things that you just want to, you know what I'm saying, want to do. You got to dress a certain way. You got to carry yourself a certain way and stuff like that. So it can be heavy on you. And, you know, when you have your brothers around all the time, you know, the camaraderie of a locker room. I know sometimes when, you know, when I was released off a team or whatever, that was really one of the main things I missed. It's like the camaraderie of, like, a brotherhood of, like Tony was kind of saying, is no matter what, like, if you came into a locker room or any type of team atmosphere and you were down that day, you had somebody that was going to ask you about you, like, what's wrong with you, like, hey, how can you know what I'm saying, how can we help to get you back up? And I think that's kind of like what's going on. Maybe I don't know him personally, you know what I'm saying, so I think that's kind of what's happening a little bit, like everybody's kind of been saying, like, a crowd for help.
Well, you go 30 years. I mean, you go 30 years in that, like you said, that locker room atmosphere.
And
even like you may not have got that at home. You know, and you depended on that, so you lived off that energy all your life, and now you don't have it.
I agree. I think a lot of players nowadays struggle with finding something else besides football.
Yeah.
So, like, meaning is in, like, you know, you a lot of these athletes, you see the struggle when, you know, you hear them with incidents with the law or whatever. It's a lot of guys you don't see also to have something else besides football. Like, you know, you see a lot of these guys like Victor Cruz, Brandon Marshall, all these guys that are, while they were playing, they're still, like, you know, you see them on TV, you know, broadcasts and stuff like that. Yeah, they have something else that is almost another team that they can bond to. And I think a lot of pro athletes struggle with that because they lose that when they're no longer playing.
And that's what I was going to add on. You know, wouldn't it be nice to have a mental health professional on staff? Just like you have the physical therapist on staff, you have that mental health therapist, like you said, when you have those down times, you got things going on when you get cut. And then know that you can provide resources for these athletes when they leave. Give them, almost like veterans. You know, we have the veterans administrations and all these things. Why not have something set up like that for the athletes? Something that they, like you said, some way that they can have a team and something they can connect with that they know they can go to for help if they ever need it. Get in a bad place, get in a soft spot, you know, hit a soft spot. Why not have those resources for them as well?
Well, Devin, I want to, because you're making faces over there.
Well, yeah,
so tell me what those faces are about.
I just, like, honestly, it's honestly unrealistic. Okay. I'm just going to be honest with you because of the point they feel as if you're an object. You're a number. Like, honestly, if you're messed up, hate to tell you, bye, we'll get another one that's not. You know what I'm saying? And it is sad, but
it's reality.
More of this.
And it's a business. So let's talk about, really quickly, we may have to do another show because this is gooder than good. And I expected this, but I believe this is so powerful. And I know in my spirit that there are people watching that need this. So we may have to come back for another show. But when you get cut, when a team releases you, when you're no longer in the locker room, do you hear from anybody?
No, man.
See, that's what I mean.
Maybe like one guy that you might have a relationship, but majority of the time, like Tony's saying, no coaches, no nothing at all. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's tough, but we gotta wrap it up. Thank you guys so much. How can people find you, follow you, give out your social media?
Yeah, Devin Wilson, Instagram and Twitter. Dub_the_dude11.
Okay.
Yeah, just follow me, Tony Goodman. That's it. Just type in Tony Goodman. You're going to find me.
And Miss health counselor if there are people watching and they need your services.
Yes, I have my own private practice. I'm Trish Counseling Care.
You have your own private
Trish's
practice. Say
Counseling
that
Care.
a little bit louder.
Yes,
Okay, awesome.
I do. And I'm on Facebook, Trish's Counseling.
Hey, Duval, y'all come out and support, man, Jacksonville Sharks this year, too, man. We need some ticket sales, man. Y'all come out.
Two-time champion.
Got to.
There you go, two-time champions. And, of course, you can follow the Get in the Game show on our YouTube channel at Get in the Game with Satara J. You can also follow us on Facebook and Periscope. Don't forget to log on to 904live.com where the show happens live every Tuesday at 6:30. Really quickly, Super Bowl predictions.
I'm with you. I like Andy Reid.
Yeah,
it's about that
Kansas
time.
City.
Kansas City.
Devin, if you pick...
I'm a Titans fan, so tighten up. I can't pick neither one of them.
No! Oh my God!
I'm a Jazz fan. I'm really watching too. I'm a Jazz fan.
For the love of the game, yes. And remember, if you want to be a part of our sponsorship family, please contact us at getinthegameshow@gmail.com. I definitely want to welcome our new sponsor, 227 Boutique, that is providing my lovely gear this evening, as well as my own personal stylist, Barbara J. Thank you to our producers. You guys will see us next week, where February we will be starting a series called Life After Football to discuss how athletes leave the game and what happens to them after that. So you guys definitely want to tune in every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. And we are leaving with this clip on Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace, Black Mamba.
Do you think your daughter might want to play in the WNBA?
She does for sure.
She does?
I don't, I mean, this kid, man.
Wouldn't that be great?
Dude, man, I'm telling you. The best thing that happens is when we go out and fans will come up to me and she'll be standing next to me and they'll be like, hey, you got to have a boy. You and V got to have a boy, man. You got somebody carry on the tradition, the legacy. She's like, oh, I got this. You know, boy, for that, I got this. Like, that's right. Yes, you do. You got this.
Do you think your daughter might want to play